In this video, we'll be looking at fractions in second grade. The TEKS are 2.3a, 2.3b, 2.3c, and 2.3d. Students will start out by looking at partitioning objects into equal parts. Know that this is the student's first experience with the term fraction. When we get to second grade, they've done equal parts and not equal parts of halves and fourths in first grade, but this is their first introduction into the term fraction. Students will work with area models and linear models, so this page just kind of shows us a really brief view of some different types of models that we can use for fractions. Our TEKS are going to end up being embedded together as we do our instruction. We're going to talk about them separately here. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about that all of this TEKS instruction on fractions is going to be very hands-on for second grade. We're going to have some picture models of different things, especially when we get into examples and non-examples, but we're definitely going to be looking at some very hands-on activities as we teach fractions. So we can use some different area model manipulatives. We can use some fraction bars. We can use geoboards to help us out with different activities. We can use Cuisenaire rods. These are some of the same samples that you saw on the other chart. And we can also use some fraction circles. We can use number lines in order to help us out with understanding our fractions. One thing we can also use, and to kind of start out our conversation on fractions with students, is to actually work on partitioning. And the easiest way to partition one object is to just use paper. And so if we have different colored strips of construction paper, we can identify the hole with the student, and we can have another piece of construction paper. It's going to be the same size, and we can talk to the students about folding it in half. When we fold it, we can talk to them about having two pieces when we unfold it, and we can work on labeling. So the fractions in second grade are labeled this way. We do not use traditional fraction notation with numerators and denominators. We just talk about what this label means. It's 1/2, it's 1 part of 2, this is 1/2. And then we would continue on doing the folding and the talking and looking at what it would look like if I fold it into fourths, and doing some predicting, and also having another strip, and we can fold this one and get eighths. And this would give the students that really hands-on idea of cutting into equal parts in order to represent a part of a whole, which is what a fraction is doing. We can also have them do some partitioning when we look at the geoboard. They're given a large rectangle that's in yellow, and then they have to show something in half, or they would have to show fourths of something, or eighths even. And so they can change and manipulate, or we could do that and model for the students. Is this an example of 1/4? And we could say no, because this is only one part, and if we find the other parts, that's 2. This is 3, so this one's in third, so this is not showing 1/4 of the rectangle. So that's how you can kind of see how the partitioning and the identifying examples can kind of be blended together in different activities as you're using the manipulatives. So we also want to make sure that the students see fourths, see eighths, see halves in multiple ways. So when we're talking about picture representation or using different models, we can look at some squares, and you're just going to have to pardon my not perfect squares that I'm drawing here, to represent fourths. And so the students can see fourths this way, they can see fourths this way, we can even work on fourths this way. And it's just about giving them different models and letting them see if we're dividing circles and halves. It doesn't always have to be straight across. I can use more of a diagonal look to that partitioning. When we talk about the part of the TEKS where the students have to identify that the larger the piece, the smaller the piece, the more you're gonna have. The larger the piece, the less you're gonna have. So when we look at this, the brown is representing one whole. The purple is representing half. The red is representing fourths, and the white is representing eighths. And we want the students to see that even though we're talking about 8, which in their mind is bigger than 2, the 8th pieces are very small. And so we're letting them really experience that. The Cuisenaire rods are a really good tool in order to use this, or the fraction bars and even the fraction circles. A lot less with them doing a lot of drawing. That way they're partitioning correctly, or seeing that partition being done correctly. Students are also within these teaks counting fractional parts. So we can look at, I guess we can put this back up here. We can look at the brown being our 1 whole. And so if we identify the purple, and so we know that the purple is 1/2 of the brown, and if this is all of the purple that we have, I know that this is 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves. So the students would write, I have 4 halves if they're counting the purple. We're not talking about mixed numbers. We're not putting anything in representing anything more than just writing in terms. So no fraction notation along with this. So we can move these out of the way and look at the last part of the teak, where it is identifying examples and non-examples of halves, fours, and eighths. So we saw how we can use our pieces here to represent halves. We're going to talk to the students that this represents halves because it fills the entire whole. There's 2 pieces and they're the same 2 pieces. They represent the same amount, and they can stack on top of each other to see, or side by side to see that they represent the same amount. This does not represent halves. Yes, it has 2 pieces, but my pieces are not the same size. And in the same way, this does not represent fourths. Yes, there are 4 pieces, and my pieces are all the same, but I don't go all the way and represent the entire whole as it goes all the way across. Those are the teaks that students will be working on with fractions, including the identify examples and non-examples. You can do that with paper and drawing those pieces, but if you have any questions about fractions, let us know.